inmate, an Asian male, was assaulted by other inmates within a living unit at the annex. During the course of that investigation, we discovered that not only was he assaulted by inmates, but that assault appeared to have been ordered and directed by a deputy, Frank Ramos. During the course of the investigation, we discovered video and audio, very good video and audio from within the living unit that showed very clearly what was occurring. So what I can tell you about the incident itself, they were in the living unit. The deputy was there. It is an open unit. So what it is it's a living unit where it's all bunk beds within the confines of the annex. While they were milling around, inmates were milling around within the living unit. The deputy was behind his desk watching everything going on. A female deputy entered the living unit. I'll identify that female deputy in just a few minutes here for you because that's important. The female deputy entered the living unit, and one of the inmates appeared to have catcalled her. Basically, he made a sound when she walked in, a cat call. The male inmate obviously appeared to take offense to it. Deputy Ramos then began yelling at the inmates to determine who did that, and then making threats that that's how you get, for lack of a better term, that's how you get effed up in this place. The inmate, the 45-year-old inmate, raised his hand, admitted that he was the one that did it. He appeared to apologize. I don't think he was being confrontational at all. Yes, disrespectful to the female deputy, but he owned up to it and admitted that it was him. Shortly thereafter, the Ramos began making hand gestures and verbal indicators to some of the other inmates. One of the other inmates in the case flagged the 45-year-old victim to a bathroom area where he was assaulted. Now, thankfully, that assault was not too severe, but still, he suffered a bloody nose and a cut to his head, certainly enough to get medical attention soon thereafter, and certainly enough for us to kick off this investigation. So that deputy went home for the night after that incident occurred. The next morning, before he began his shift, he was put on administrative leave. So that would have been, the assault occurred on the evening of 5/17. He was placed on administrative leave the morning of 5/18. And then earlier today, our public integrity unit, who's been working on this pretty much around the clock for the last couple of days, applied for those 2 arrest warrants. They were granted. And Ramos was arrested at his residence by our public integrity unit investigators and deputies from the SCORE unit. Also working on the case was our internal affairs unit, who, it should also be noted that as we speak, Ramos is being served with termination proceedings. We are initiating termination proceedings based upon the findings of the case to this point. Obviously, this is not something that we condone. This is not something we train, and it's not something we tolerate. We did take swift, severe action on it. I know that there'll probably be a question is why not just file this case at large and then let the chips fall where they may later on. Look, I'm working very, very hard to turn around the general attitude toward this agency and the way we conduct ourselves in this agency. And if you acquiesce to this sort of behavior, if you just let an investigation be filed at large and take its natural course, that to me is not sending any sort of message. I wanted to make sure that we dealt with this swiftly, severely, and upfront and transparently with the community, which is what we're doing today. And I want this to serve as an example of what not to do. By now, I can't imagine that anybody's got any sort of lingering doubts on my stance toward misconduct or toward law breaking. I've made that stance perfectly clear over the course of the last 4+ years, and I'm going to continue to make it clear. So let me also name the female deputy in this case, Jasmine Ramos. Not a common spelling. It's Jasmine with a Y, Jasmyne. She's 22 years of age. She's been with the agency for about 2 years now. She's the female deputy that entered the living area and had the cat call toward her. This deputy, although she's not at this point facing criminal charges, she has been terminated from the sheriff's office immediately. She is a part-time employee, which means she does not have civil service protections. When she came on in 2019, she obviously was a full-time deputy. However, in 2020, she requested to be placed on part-time to attend classes, to attend school. And so being that she went to part-time, she relinquished her civil service, which allows me to terminate her effective immediately without recourse. So she's got no legal recourse in this. She was terminated because of the fact that she knew what was about to occur. She knew it was occurring, and yet she did absolutely nothing to stop it. She did absolutely nothing to report it. That goes directly in violation of our policy to intervene. We have a policy to intervene whenever you see misconduct on the part of a deputy. And so she did neither. She didn't intervene. She didn't report it. The only time she did report it was when she was questioned by our public integrity investigators, and then she gave the information up. And so we saw fit to terminate her. So unfortunately, what we're seeing now is two deputies ending their career, in essence. Obviously, Mr. Ramos has to go through the process. He's got an appeals process, but I don't see any reason to do anything else other than stand firm on what we've done to this point. Again, we've got very strong video and audio evidence in this case that I just don't see what his possible explanation could be. I will add also that the several inmates in the case, and we'll have to get you their information, several inmates in the case also are facing charges for the assault of this 45-year-old victim. The 45-year-old victim, I will tell you, that is still incarcerated here. His charges are assault, family violence, choking, and violation of a protective order. So I don't believe that he'll be going anywhere anytime soon. But thankfully, he is he's as well as can be expected after having suffered an assault like that. And obviously, he's going to be offered protective custody for what he's gone through to this point. So I'll open it up to whatever questions you might have. Let me do that in Spanish, and then we'll open it up to whatever questions you might have. Esta tarde, nuestros oficiales con nuestra unidad de integridad pública arrestaron a un oficial de 34 años, que él tiene casi los 7 años de ser oficial aquí en el departamento del sheriff. Pasó un incidente, pasó un asalto el día 17 de este mes, donde uno de nuestros reos sufrió heridas menores a las manos de otros reos. Cuando empezamos la investigación, descubrimos que el oficial Frank Ramos, él fue el que dio la orden para asaltar la víctima. Se aparenta que el incidente empezó cuando una mujer, una oficial hembra, entró al cuarto donde estaban, y el reo empezó a decirle algo a la oficial. Al oficial, al sospechoso, obviamente él se molestó por eso y empezó a amenazar al sospechoso con palabras. Ya después de eso, él se veía en video ordenando a los otros reos que asaltaran a la víctima. Esos otros reos metieron al sospechoso, a la víctima, hacia un baño que está obviamente cubrido de la cámara, y asaltaron a la víctima. La víctima sufrió heridas menores, pero él, cuando salió, nos dio la queja y nosotros empezamos la investigación. Ya el día el día último, el día después del asalto, nosotros le dimos la despedida, las órdenes de despedida al oficial y esta tarde nuestros oficiales de la Unidad de Integridad Pública arrestaron al sospechoso en 2 cargos de opresión oficial y asalto con heridas. La víctima es un sospechoso de 45 años de edad, es asiático. Él está aquí por cargos de violencia doméstica. Y en estos momentos él está bien con sus heridas, pero también le vamos a ofrecer, si quiere, protección mientras que él esté aquí por lo que fue involucradas por lo que él sufrió a las manos de este oficial, ex oficial y estos otros reos. También le dimos la despedida a una oficial, la oficial que fue involucrada en el incidente, una jovencita de 22 años de edad. Ella tiene ya 2 años de estar trabajando aquí. Ella le dimos la despedida porque ella sabía lo que iba a pasar, supo que iban a asaltar la víctima y no hizo nada para parar el ataque. Entonces eso va en contra de nuestras pólizas. Entonces le dimos la despedida inmediatamente a esa oficial. Any questions regarding this incident?
Is there any relationship between both Ramos?
No, at this point, I don't believe there's any relationship. Fairly common name, but I don't believe they're related.
Sheriff,
we'll go ahead and...
what's the name of the deputy? The female deputy?
The female deputy is Jasmine Ramos, but it's not a common spelling. It's Jasmy, as in Yankee, N-E. Ramos, 22 years of age. She's been with the sheriff's office about 2 years now. And she went part-time in December of 2020.
Sheriff, does it seem like this is not an isolated incident? It appears that based on what you're saying, that they were signaling that this has happened before.
Well, it's so interesting that you should point that out, because that's what struck us. Is it was very orchestrated. It was very easy. It was natural. It's almost like it's something that they've rehearsed or done other times. And so that right there makes me very suspicious that there may have been other things that occurred. And so we are making it known to the other inmates in the jail that if you've suffered something like this, call us. Obviously, we're going to take it seriously. Obviously, we're going to act immediately as we did in this case. We've told our trainees, our trainee deputies, our cadets, we've told them flat out, look, these people that are within this jail setting, they're not your friends, they're not your family, but they're also not your enemies. They're not here to be punished. That's not your job. That's not your role. And so if you do end up doing something to these folks, unjustified, you're going to be held accountable. You've crossed the line into being a criminal at this point. You're no better than any common criminal on the street at that point. And so if you act like a criminal in this place, we're going to treat you like a criminal. Frank Ramos found that out the hard way. He's finding it out the hard way as we speak. He's being booked into this facility. I can't think of anything more humiliating for a deputy, but in this case, I'm sorry, but he deserves it. And again, we're acting very, very quickly in serving him with termination paperwork as well. I mean, obviously, we've still got an investigation to do, but I feel very strongly about this, that with the evidence that we have, what's your argument going to be? How are you going to even attempt to justify this? So I saw fit to make the arrest and make that termination, both of those terminations immediately.
Hey, Sheriff, it's Mike with WOAI.
If I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it common for a female employee to be in a area of the jail where there are male inmates?
So this female deputy, yes, it's not uncommon, Mike, I should say. This female deputy was working in the corridor, and what she was doing was she was walking around, checking on the unit officers and making sure that they got their breaks. So being that she's a part-time deputy, it's her job to go in and relieve officers if they need a bathroom break, if they need to go take a meal break, or call home or whatever it might be. It's her job to come in and offer them relief or document the fact that they were offered a 20-minute break. So that's what she was doing. And so she went in and she, it started out innocently enough. She came in to just do what she was being directed to do. But soon thereafter, the cat call started, which obviously is not right. It's not, we're not condoning what that inmate did. However, it's also not something that's our job to punish. There are administrative sanctions that can be brought down on an inmate if misbehavior like that occurs. Those sanctions, administrative sanctions, do not include a beating at the hands of another inmate, obviously. So one of the things that we're doing, you all know that I have public integrity deputies that are assigned to the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. It's my intention to try to pursue federal charges on this. I don't know. I can't speak for the FBI. I don't know if this case will be accepted as a federal case, but I'm telling you right now, it is my intention to pursue this as a federal charge. It's that serious. Granted, the beating is not the worst assault I've ever seen in 28 years of law enforcement, almost 29. But when that beating takes place at the direction of somebody that's sworn to uphold the law, I take issue with that. And so we are looking at ways of filing this case federally if we're able to.
Sheriff, to date, how many Bexar County Sheriff employees have been fired?
That's not a number I have in front of me, but again, what I can tell you is I don't know how high that number is right now. I don't know how high that number will climb. I can tell you I have active investigations going on at this moment. My public integrity unit is actively working investigations at this moment. So I don't know how high that number is going to go. I don't necessarily let that guide my actions. Why? Because I don't want to be guided by that. And oh my God, that number is getting too high. That number is getting too out of control. I don't know how high that number is going to go, but it's going to go higher. I'm telling you right now, it's going to go higher. The way I run this agency, the way I handle my business, that number is going to go higher before it goes down. And I'm going to keep making that number go higher until people get the point that I'm not messing around. Obviously, we're not going to tolerate misconduct. We're not going to tolerate you violating people's civil rights. We're not going to tolerate you crossing the line and becoming no better than a common criminal. So every time it happens, I'm going to make the arrest. I'm going to call a press conference to tell you guys about it. And so that was a very long explanation. I don't know what the number is at this point, but we'll get that to you later.
Sheriff, can you tell us where that that footage came from? Was that from body cameras or cameras in the unit?
No, it's so living unit officers, regular living unit officers do not have body cameras. I wish we could, but it's cost prohibitive to do that. That is a living unit camera. It's just a camera that we have in the living units at the annex. And it's got, as it turns out, pretty good audio. Some of the chiefs and I were talking about the fact that usually in law enforcement, when you really need, at the crucial moment that you really need video, the camera's obscured, or at the crucial moment you really need to hear some sort of audio, the audio's bad. And in the moments leading up to this, it was very noisy. You couldn't hope to hear what was occurring, what was being said. It's a very loud environment. But like a godsend, literally right before this occurred, it got really, really quiet and all the inmates moved out of the way. So we've got, what we're left with is perfect audio and video of the incident. That's going to be very, very hard to overcome.
Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I didn't know who it was. I heard a young lady trying to speak. Go ahead.
Sheriff, given all the incidents where you've had to fire employees, is there something that needs to change when it comes to the hiring process? I know that you're always looking to hire, but is there something that, are you hiring the wrong people, or are they not getting enough training that they have to get fired?
Look, we're very, very picky on who gets into the sheriff's office. The vast majority of people that apply actually don't get in. Could I fill all my vacancies tomorrow? Yeah, absolutely I could. I just open up the floodgates and I relax the hiring standards to the point where we're hiring anybody with a pulse. That's been done here. and it was several years back before I got here. And unfortunately, I don't like that way of doing business. So I am very picky on who gets in. Does it cause us to be a little slower in bringing people in the door? Absolutely, it does. And but I'm going to stick to my guns on that. I am not going to relax the hiring standards one bit. One of the other things that we do here is we teach a thing called EPIC. Ethical Policing is Courageous. And we've talked to you all about EPIC before. It's a training program that we brought with us from the city of New Orleans. And EPIC, basically in a nutshell, if I had to summarize it, it just basically tells you that you have to become involved as a deputy. You've got to become involved and intervene if you see one of your fellow deputies stepping out of line, getting out of line, breaking the rule, breaking anything. You should step in and intervene. We train that in our deputies during the training academy. We retrain it at in-service, and we'll be starting in-service back very soon now that we're a little bit further through the pandemic. So there's no shortage of training that's going on. Now, obviously, just like any other training, sometimes people don't get the point. But I can tell you in this instance, these two got a crash course in EPIC. They certainly got a crash course in my stance and a stern reminder on my stance toward misconduct today. And again, anybody contemplating similar behavior, I would advise against it. If you're thinking that this is the way of doing things, go find someplace else to work, because we're not going to tolerate it here. You're going to end up in the very jail that you're sworn to provide security to. So I can't say it any more plainly than that. If people fail to get the point through the selection process, or fail to get the point through the training or retraining that we offer, or they fail to get the point through seeing other people made examples of, then fine, we'll make an example of you.
Sheriff, can you tell us how long Mr. Ramos had been stationed in that area for?
I don't know how long he's been in that area, Jacob, but he's been with the agency about a little over 7 years now. So certainly old enough to know better, certainly tenured enough to know better. This was a conscious decision on this part of this deputy to break the law and to violate somebody's civil rights. And so again, as I mentioned before, he was very, very comfortable in breaking the law and directing those inmates to assault another inmate. And so I don't know how long he's been working there. I think that information is readily available to us, and we'll get it to you. But I know he's been with the agency for about 7 years now.
Have y'all had any other folks coming forward in the wake of this incident saying, "Oh, Ramos did this or that"?
No, but this is right here is the first time we're making it public. And believe it or not, the inmates here watch the news just like everybody else. And I have no doubt that if there's somebody that's still here that has suffered something like this, they can call us or they know how to get a hold of us. Absolutely. And by that same token, if there's somebody out in the free world that has suffered something like this at the hands of this deputy or any others, they can call us as well. They can send us an email, bcsotips@bear.org, or they can call the administration office here at 210-335-6133. Any other questions, y'all?
Yeah, one more, Sheriff. This is Robert Price from Channel 4. I was wondering if you could just clarify, forgive me if you already kind of made this clear, but you said several inmates are facing charges. Were several inmates taking part in the beating? And then secondly, did they escort him into the bathroom, or did he go into the bathroom on his own volition and then the beating took place? I was just curious how that went down.
Understood. From what we can tell, and there's a lot of body language and nonverbal communication. So I'm telling you, it was a pretty smooth operation that they did. Very casual in how they were, very subtle, very casual. So we're still watching this video, and every time we watch it, we see something new that, like, oh, look at that guy. So at this point, what we know is that one inmate appeared to take direction from the officer. So he's probably, if I had to guess, 30 feet away from the deputy, and they did some sort of nonverbal communication. And so he then turns to the victim, who's on a bunk bed, and motions to him to go toward the bathroom. The victim inmate looks at the one that's gesturing to him, and he appears to say, yeah, I'm talking, and like motions to him toward the restroom. He then escorts him to the restroom. I don't believe that the inmate that gestured is one of the ones that took part in the beating, but certainly the information that we've developed is that he knew what he was doing. He knew what was going to occur, and he knew that he was playing a role in it. And then once the inmate, the victim inmate, got into the bathroom area that's not covered by the cameras for obvious reasons, at least one other inmate assaulted him and knocked him to the ground. The victim inmate got up, came out, appears to confront another inmate and the deputy verbally, and then they escorted him at the direction of the deputy, escorted him back into the restroom for another beating. At which point the victim inmate came back out again. This time he came to his bunk and is seen wiping his nose, and there's a lot of blood coming out of his nose. And he gestures to the deputy again, challenges the deputy again, and the deputy motions for the victim inmate to come over to the desk. Words are exchanged. My understanding is that it appears that the inmate is telling him, I'm going to report you for what you did. Why did you do this? Words to that effect. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. And then the deputy, the suspect deputy, called for other deputies to come. They relocated the victim inmate to another part of the jail. And it appears for a short time, other inmates move in and they steal personal property from the victim inmate's bunk. You know, they've got commissary, food items, personal items, things of that nature. They steal it from his bunk, and all this is on camera. I don't know how the victim inmate figured out that they had ripped him off. And so he makes the claim, hey, these guys are stealing my stuff. And so at some point they try to sneak the personal items back. And so I don't know if we're going to, like, if, for example, if those two other guys are going to face charges for theft. They did put the property back once the victim inmate spoke up. I mean, I got to hand it to this victim inmate. He never once, you know, as ill-advised as it sounds, he never once backed down. He never once, you know, cowered. He stood his ground, and he said, look, here's this. You shouldn't have done that to me. Despite the fact that this deputy had ordered him to be beaten twice, he stood his ground, and he stood up for his rights. And, you know, I got to say, I admire the guy for that. For standing his ground and saying what happened and not clamming up. He told us once we started questioning him, he told us flat out what happened. And I got to hand it to my public integrity unit investigators. They're very, very good at what they do. And they continued to dig, continued to uncover evidence. And again, they worked this thing just about around the clock for the past couple of days till they had enough information to file the charge. So any other questions, y'all? Okay. Well, thank you all so much. Whatever information is outstanding, I will make sure that Addie gets it to you all. But I appreciate you all tuning in, and we will keep you all updated as this case develops, you know, possibly into a federal case or whatever else it might be. But again, I'll just close in reminding everybody that, you know, we take the integrity of this agency seriously. That's why we have done the things that we've done with regard to public integrity and internal affairs. In fact, we're expanding our internal affairs unit as we speak. That's been something that's been in the works for some time. And, you know, it's something that we don't shy away from. We may not always do the easy thing, but we do the right thing. And so, you know, I will close with that for now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Can you guys go ahead and put the photo up?